So there's a lot of talk about change and innovation, and oftentimes that talk is kind of blah, 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 blah. So this morning we're going to start with specifics with a panel on digital natives. I have a long history with the digital era. In the 1990s, I became convinced that the internet was going to change the world, and I tried to convince the CIA that that was so. And I found them very resistant to it, and it wasn't until years later that I realized that I was advocating theological change. The internet then was about open and sharing information, and what was the CIA about? Not that. So when you're trying to make change in an organization, you're trying to be a rebel at work, theological change is particularly difficult. And so it's better when you start with an adjacency or start with something specific. And so our first panel today is going to do just that. But first, we're going to start with a video.
This is what's left of Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria blew through. It destroyed homes and knocked out power, water, and almost all of the island's cell towers. Now, 3.5 million people are living in a disaster zone.
When the storm was passed, we didn't have any communications in Puerto Rico. So how do we know what happened? How do we know that the state is actually assisting?
For big response teams like FEMA, that knowledge is critical. Justo Hernandez is in charge of getting help where it needs to be, like yesterday.
Normally we would take satellite phones and start driving to find information out. But that proved unreliable because we had a lot of debris in the roads. So how do we get information in order to bring medical assistance, to bring food and commodities to the folks that are hurting, to do search and rescue missions? I talked to the staff and I told them, I need you to be my eyes. I want you to go up. I want you to start using every major airframe that you have and start looking out there. Start looking at where the damages are so that we can concentrate our effort. Right now, we have over 17,000 people working in this response.
To deploy those people and get their feedback from the field, FEMA needed a tool to track problems in a place with no connectivity. Justin Barnes and Elijah Ferguson arrived with a custom iPhone app. This is the first time it's been used in a disaster.
It's actually very simple. We're dropping points and taking pictures, observed damage or areas in need.
You can use the GPS features completely offline with no connectivity and drop a very accurate lat long. So to do that, let's say we want to go into this area and we drop a point, we just hold and drop it there, and then we select the instant type. From the instant type, we can select a completely destroyed road. As soon as we put that, we can make a few notes on the road, or we can just click save, or we can take a photograph of the road.
When they get a signal, FEMA gets the updates. Today, Justin and Elijah are heading to Cuamo. The immediate need there is for water, but they need to land to find out more. En route, they're constantly scanning for damage and dropping points. This community was hard hit, cut off by washed out roads and bridges.
When you look around here and you see the tops of buildings blown off, you can see all the foliage still off the trees. This is one of the areas in the Central Islands that's been really devastated. What we'll do is we'll bring in large helicopters or heavy lift capability helicopters and bring food and water and offload that.
A face-to-face with the residents gives them the whole picture.
You said approximately 70 homes?
Well, there's probably more than that.
Okay.
People that lost their roofs and stuff, maybe about 50.
Okay.
I just made a note of it and it dropped on here. What we're doing right now is we're identifying these isolated communities, trying to find our shortfalls so we can address them and bring resources in as much as
why
possible.
has it taken so long?
The frustration is tangible.
What we need right now is for them to open the road. Once they open the road, maybe we can get to town. And they came towards the bridge.
Right now, we're going to go and assess a bridge that the locals reported were out and that they can't get things in and out of the area. This data is extremely valuable because what we're getting right now with no cellular service on the island, a lot of the locals cannot report this on social media. I'm going to try to take some pictures right here just to make sure that we're passing the best information possible back to our communities.
The system is so simple, anyone with an iPhone can use the app to upload thousands of points of information.
If they're going out in the field, we want to make them an information gathering asset. We want to make sure that all information, nothing is falling through the cracks.
Is it passable now, though, around the side road?
No, well, they're doing construction. They only let us through because we had Jeeps and we were cops.
If you'd airdrop all that to me, since we have no service, that'd be great.
You got your 47 coming up over the ride.
When we look around here, this is very tight quarters. We have 2 heavy lift helicopters coming in here. They're called Chinooks, CH-47. So these air operations folks are really going to be managing the vectoring of these birds to bring them in this tight area.
They're going to get the supplies off-road as quick as possible. Then get them out. They can keep going on mission. There we go.
When we're able to actually go out to the field and see these commodities delivered and the smiles on the faces and the people that we're actually helping, the experience is just, it's amazing.
Agua? Agua?
This is what we directly did. This is awesome. Get to see it all the way through.
This app has changed how FEMA operates in disasters for good, especially when the job seems too massive to be manageable.
This is the biggest operation for air support that FEMA has encountered, and we will continue to do this until we're no longer needed.
Excellent. I should say, by the way, that I am Puerto Rican. Let me introduce our panel here. I'll start at the end with the man who needs no introduction, Jeff Harris, chairman of the USGIF board. Next to him is the legendary Jack Dangermond, who's the founder and president of ESRI. Next to him is Ben Foster, who's the digital services lead at the National Geospatial Agency. And then we have Kate McGaughey, who is with the USDA Foreign Agriculture Service. And finally, next to me is Aljune Leroy, who is a civil affairs sergeant in the US Army. And a secret, it is his birthday today.
Thank you.
We don't really have time for the audience to sing happy birthday. So Jeff, over to you. Why are we here together?
So welcome to our living room. We all operate in differing systems and cultures and bureaucracies. And we've invited 3 digital natives to join us this morning to have really an unrehearsed conversation with all of us. So we encourage you to ask questions and comment from the side. We're going to ask each of our 3 digital natives to talk a little bit about the context of their job and how it comes together. But it's really the excitement of the ease of the technology in order to influence how the mission takes place and how our colleagues here have navigated the system in order to get good mission outcomes. And so we have Carmen, Jack, and I here to have sort of the conversation that says, you know, it always hasn't been this way. And even though we are younger of heart, as Jack and I discussed, you know, we're excited about how the tools have come into the marketplace and how the changes are taking place. So we're anxious to hear each of these stories, and then we're going to interact.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm particularly interested in is, in some ways, nothing is the same. In some ways, everything is the same. Because these young people, as you'll see in a few minutes, are people that jumped ahead. They have new skills, they have new contextual understandings, but they focused on mission first. That's the common theme that I get from them.
Perfect.
Excellent. So who's going to start? I'm going to start. I know you are.
Hi, good morning. My name is Aljune Leroy. I'm a civil affairs sergeant with the 91st Civil Affairs Battalion out of Fort Bragg. We are under United States Army Special Operations Command. We have 5 battalions, special operations, civil affairs battalions deployed, teams deployed all over the globe. We have over 50 teams at the moment deployed to the most remote, austere, and dangerous environments in the world. Being a digital native is super challenging in a special operations command. You have to innovate on the ground at the tactical level. You have to innovate at the operational level and convince your leaders that this is the way forward. This is how we're gonna get you the information as fast as you need it. And there's gonna be a lot of questions on the systems, on how you're doing it, but these are the things that as a special operations personnel, we have to navigate and convince our leaders that being digitally integrated is very important. So, like I said, I'm from the 91st Civil Affairs Battalion. We operate in a 4-man team. We have a Civil Affairs team leader, Civil Affairs Senior Sergeant, Civil Affairs Sergeant, which is myself, and a Special Operations Combat Medic. In a 4-man team, we operate with, by, and through other special operations units, Special Forces, SEALs, and Marine Special Operations. We also work and collaborate with the US Embassy, other interagencies, and host nation governments, IGOs, NGOs, and a host nation military. Through civil reconnaissance, civil engagement, and network analysis, we are able to map the human domain. And that's how we leverage ourselves with our partners to conduct some of our projects, whether it's a medical project, a vet project, or any project that our host nation partners deem it's necessary in the benefit of the human domain and our mission downrange. The challenges that we had being a digital native, like I said earlier, was convincing our leaders that there is other ways to do our job. And there's other ways that's faster. So if you see right here, we had some old innovation. This is still things we do in training. This is not gonna go away. This is the things we do. But the thing here is, do you remember taking photos of yourself in Disneyland and you had to put it in a scanner so you could put it onto social media, right? So that was the old ways, right? So for our job, there's still times we have to do that. We have our Nikon photo camera, our handheld GPS, and a notepad to scribble. And if you're on a mission in a truck, in an austere environment, in a remote area in the world where it could be potentially dangerous, you have to make multiple stops to gather that data. And sometimes you don't have that. You don't have that time. And sometimes you just don't come back to that point anymore. And it's probably a very important point. It could be an important infrastructure. You could have been meeting people on the ground at that time, but you didn't get the time to jot down that information. And all that information goes to other analytical systems that we have once we get back to our team houses. Now, we were able to use a digital system, a mobile digital system that does everything. It has a time, date, and stamp, just like you saw in the FEMA video. Now we're moving a lot faster. We gather that information, we send it up through the digital system, and our immediate headquarters, wherever they're at around the world, immediately sees our assessments. And from there, they can connect to us and ask more questions, and they see where we're at. On March 2nd, 2018, I was up in Special Operations Command Forward, Northwest Africa in Germany. Our team and our civil military support element team in Burkina Faso was called upon by the embassy to help out the international school of Ouagadougou. There was an attack by Al-Qaeda in the city that hit the French embassy and also hit the Burkina Faso Army headquarters. And it was only like a mile and a half from this school where 40 American children they attend. At this time, their systems went down. At Germany, it happened so fast that in our office in Germany, we didn't even know that they were there. They spun up. They were already there. Immediately, the operations officer came to us and said, "Where's your team?" And we're like, "Well, where's our team? You should be telling us where our team is." But it happened so fast. The primary, the secondary, the tertiary systems for communication, whether through comms or data, was not working for our team. So immediately understanding this system, we got on the system and we saw, if you see right there in the lower right portion of the photo, that was the first photo they sent. And immediately we knew that they were at the school, and we got a hold of them through the chat, and then they told us that their systems are down, this is working, and from there, operations was running off this simple system after that, because at that point, the security was the primary goal, was securing children, sending them back to the embassy. After that was over, the most important thing we gathered here in the command, as well as at the tactical level, was that we needed some digital integration when it came to our tactical assessments on the ground. And this informs commanders faster, because anything could have happened at that point. With the comms going down, if there's needed to be additional resources flexed to that team, it would happen too late. But because of our digital integration, commanders were informed on that time immediately, and thankfully nothing happened to the children and to our team. And that's my story.
Excellent. Thank you. So Katie, what's your story?
Thank you. Good, I didn't even have to press the button. Okay, so while the US Department of Agriculture is largely a domestic agency, I'm only going to be talking about the Foreign Agricultural Service. So as you can see on the map of the screen, there's about 1,400 of us based in 93 overseas offices, covering analysis for about 170 countries. So my group within the Foreign Agricultural Service is responsible for providing the official estimates of world agricultural supply and demand that drives trading on agricultural commodity markets worldwide. So essentially, we need to understand how much agriculture other countries are producing, how much they're trading, and we need to understand the policy implications that impact production and trade. Because nothing happens in a vacuum anymore. What happens to agriculture in Russia, in Brazil, in China, impacts American farmers. So my primary objective is to forecast agricultural production for my regional portfolio over the current growing season. So my group has historically relied on official statistics and other subjective analysis from subject matter experts, but today we have objective, timely, and quantifiable data from satellite imagery. And all of this is important for a couple of different reasons. So one, we want to provide support to American farmers for their decision making. Two, we want to provide transparency to the global market. And three, we want to identify hotspots of food insecurity. So now I specifically want to talk about a crop travel mission that I took with a colleague to Morocco and Tunisia. So these countries are important potential markets for US wheat, and Tunisia was also the birthplace of an event known as the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring was due to a number of different factors, one of which was high food prices. So first we want to define area. So where is wheat grown? Where is barley grown? Where is corn grown? Because then we can use this defined area with other remote sensing derived products to analyze yield throughout the growing season. So traditionally when we traveled with a lot of pieces of equipment. It was very similar to what Aljune was saying. We traveled with a camera, a GPS, laptop with imagery downloaded on it. But today, we can just travel with our smartphones. So that's what we did. We learned about a mobile data collection app from our colleagues at NGA. And we took that into the field to collect the different GPS points of agricultural fields. And then we leveraged that ground truth information to run our crop classification models that were run using cloud computing for the very first time to get an in-season area estimate for wheat. So in May of 2017, we published this initial wheat area estimate. And several months later, at the end of the wheat growing season, we validated the initial May estimate using official government statistics, and we only varied by a few percentage points. So that means that we were able to get a more accurate wheat area estimate earlier than ever before. So additionally, we've taken this method and we've applied it to a number of other countries, including China, India, and Brazil, and have plans for further expansion. And then finally, we also provide capacity building to other countries' ministries of agriculture to complete the same sort of data collection work. So working within this large international context, sometimes it's challenging to share data, especially imagery-based analysis. So my group at the Foreign Agricultural Service developed the Global Agricultural Disaster Assessment System, which is a web-based platform that brings together all of the geospatial layers that we use to monitor crop conditions. And initially, we just published it internally for our foreign service officers, but as of August of last year, we made not only the web-based platform, but all of the underlying geospatial data layers available for free for anyone to download and pull into their systems. So now to wrap up, I want to talk about this so what. So why does all this matter, right? So our job at the Foreign Agricultural Service is to provide market intelligence to American farmers so that they can make the best decisions for their farms and their businesses. 2, we want to provide transparency to the global markets because high food prices can cause instability. So going back to that Arab Spring example from earlier. And 3, we want to identify hotspots of food insecurity because this is the take-home message. Leveraging technology allows us to more accurately forecast global agricultural production, which is important because food security is a key component to national security. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So Ben, I suspect that some of what you do at NGA relates to some of what our previous 2 speakers have talked about.
So there's 2 reasons why I don't have PowerPoint slides. One, my boss put me on a ration of 50 slides a year. So I decided to not use that today and just talk. But the other reason is my story is really their story. So our team is the enabler behind these stories in the FEMA Puerto Rico video. So I'm in the technology directorate at NGA, and we are focused on building technology that, to mimic the traits of technology that you had in your opening speech, that are web-based services, that are mobile services. We're trying to meet our mission partner where they live, to make these technologies intuitive and lightweight to be able to be rapidly applied to whatever their missions are. And another common thing to pull the thread through this is these are technologies that are customizable, right? As we see here, we have civil affairs and foreign agriculture service, 2 very disparate mission use cases. In the humanitarian disaster relief scenario, so this is exactly the type of technology that we're trying to build, is customized to make them organic to our mission partners and let NGA be the enabler and the behind the scenes. So the other part of the story in the FEMA video is taking into account those helicopters that had to navigate. So one of NGA's core missions is safety of navigation. So that data to navigate those helicopters safely was also NGA kind of behind the scenes, and the applications to power that data. So that's what we're really focused on, is building these mission capabilities and focused on our mission partners.
So how does an app magically end up on the Droid store and the iOS store that originates at NGA?
Through navigating the bureaucracy. So that's one thing that, you know, if we're going to talk on the digital native theme, that I wanted to highlight is one thing that we try to focus on as digital natives is fluidly moving along continuums. So in that scenario, we have to respect the establishment and the bureaucracy because it exists for a reason, right? We have Office of General Counsel, public release officers, contracting officers, all to help enable us. So we take that into account up front, and we work that, you know, before we start pushing these missions out, but we find and build relationships within that bureaucracy to help us navigate it. So with a lot of our capabilities, we focused up front on we need to make this open standards and lower the barrier of entry, which means I need our Office of Corporate Communications, I need our lawyers to sign off on this. We need to work this into our contract. So once we do that, that's the behind the scenes that I don't want to bore our mission partners with, but that's what makes it so that we have to solve these other problems of distributing these capabilities. So we knew that the barrier of entry for an application that is beneficial to a vast, disparate use of our mission partners, we have to get that as easy as possible. So that required us to integrate with the public app stores.
So June, when I talked to you, you mentioned this guy that you met named Justin Connolly. What's the Justin Connolly story?
Oh, okay. So Justin Connolly works down at Tampa. Him and Ben are where they work together, right, Ben? So Justin, first, it wasn't Justin who we met first. Justin was the guy on the phone, like, hey, Justin, we need to adjust this app to fit our needs downrange. And a lot of those talks happened when I finally went down to Africa in Burkina Faso. And we had a mission that we needed to tweak some of the app's capabilities. So first we were able to talk to a guy at SOC 4, he's at NGA as well, Jeremiah, and he was the biggest advocate for it because he sees how slow the reporting comes in. It takes a couple of days after a mission for that reporting to come in, and then the priorities change quickly. So the partnership with NGA was very quick and very responsive to where, hey, we need assessment forms, we need to change some of these data inputs for us, and it was just right there. Within 5 minutes, they will call back and say, Justin will call back and say, hey, can you check it out? And then he'll check it out, and it was good to go.
So June says to me, Rhonda and I are talking to him on the phone, he said, there's this guy, Justin, and he's incapable of saying no.
Yes.
And I said, well, where's this Justin guy? Where's an NGA guy? And then Ben says to me, where's Justin work?
That's a secret. No, sorry, Justin, I'm spilling the beans here. He's in Key West with the Joint Interagency Task Force South. So he's in our research directorate.
So how does a research directorate end up talking to an operator in the field doing real operational stuff?
So
do the adults know this is going on?
Not always. We try to let them know, but so this project started as an R&D thing. The unique thing about Justin and the research directorate enabling Justin to continue to do this is that he's seen it through. So he's an integrator as well, and he's constantly finding different problems to solve with this technology. So he's still in our research directorate, but he's a core part of our team, and he's seeing it through to enable our mission partners.
So just one thing, just to follow up on Justin's point, you've taken an organization from this to this, and throughout your career, I think you've said to your organization, run faster. How do you get your organization to run fast but not too fast when you look at Ben sort of saying, the bureaucracy's there for a reason? You know, how do you, not too warm, not too cold? How do you think about that? What's your advice to Ben?
It's scary, actually, because when you build something that's successful like this, you also have to think about scale, because you can do one-offs here and there, but then how do you scale it out so that it is both adhering to the standards that you talked about, but also has the infrastructure behind it so that you can have 100 of these cases or 1,000 of these cases. So, I mean, what is your thinking about productization, QA, QC, all of that stuff that drives people like me crazy?
So I would say right now, we've migrated away from the R&D phase, and we are in the integration phase, but that integration phase is more of the groundswell, the grassroots of integrating with these mission partners one-off. So from a technology perspective, we think about scale of, this is why we are writing the technology with open standards and making it open source and scalable. But then there's the human problems to solve, and that's the navigating the bureaucracy. And so we did build a governance board that's small, but has key stakeholders within all of our directorates to help with the security aspects, the testing aspects. We have to take into account problems like with security, and is this on a managed government device or is this on your own personal device? So that's where we have a
Talk
team.
about managed apps and managed devices.
So We don't manage devices at NGA. We utilize another agency that is a service provider of managed, but that's my government phone. Right? That's where I have my accredited.
But June might have 3 phones on when he's deployed.
Yes, so sometimes we have 2 or 3 phones depending on what's its purpose. And so managing it wasn't hard. So from logging in, from signing up to logging in, it had multiple layers of security. So you make sure that you can see everybody who's on that system. And even if everybody's, let's say 100 people are on that system, but they're not part of the event, they're not invited to that event, they have no access to that event. So you can't see what the other teams are doing unless you're invited to it. So the management of the system wasn't hard. There was a lot of compartmentalization of the data.
And it was easy for us to do it on the fly, too. So when we were in Morocco, we were traveling with the Foreign Service Officer, and also we have locally employed staff. And so on the fly, we were able to very quickly just add an account for them, add them to the event, and they were collecting data right along with us.
So they're speaking to the security and the QA/QC that we're trying to build inside the app, but with managed devices. So if you're on a government device, that's the locked down, really secure. They can remotely wipe it. We're also solving those problems with another team that we have, which is why we have our own GEOINT app store at NGA. So that's where we do the integration with managed devices. But we want to try to bake it in, so it doesn't matter what device you're on. And that's what we're trying to do.
So I have a couple of questions from the audience, and also, despite what the time clock says that, we're going to probably go for another 5 minutes or so just to get us back on schedule. This is actually the only really important job of the Master of Ceremonies. But I do want to say, hearing this conversation before I ask the questions from the audience, is that this idea of cycle time and this tension between how things are supposed to be done, how the bureaucracy wants things done, and the reality of how life works really challenges what I think are the concepts of cycle time, from development to operationalizing it that I grew up with. In fact, when I heard you all talking, I wonder really in this age, how relevant is the concept of research and development, or do we have to rethink that? Now for Katie, I have quite a pointed question here, is why doesn't the USDA rely on the private sector to do those crop estimates? What's the value added that USDA provides?
Well, so production is 2 things. It's area and it's yield. So yield is where USDA adds a lot of the value.
Right.
And in terms of area, I mean, it's something that we're working on, trying to get away from using the official statistics of other governments. So that's why we've kind of done this work. But the yield monitoring, the yield analysis that we do is really where we add the value.
And for both Katie and June, what specifically, some people want to know, what system were you using? Or systems were you using? What app, what platform? I mean, I know you talked a bit about what you were doing, Katie, but June.
Oh, the platform we were using, it's called MAGE, Mobile Awareness GEOINT Environment. That's what the app is.
I'm glad he answered that first because I did not remember the acronym. So didn't remember what the acronym stood for. But yeah, we used MAGE as well, and then we used Google Earth Engine for the cloud computing aspect of it.
And also for both June and Katie, and also this is an audience question, but I'm going to add a little intro. When I was in government, the managers wore their digital ignorance like a badge of honor. They were proud to be digitally ignorant. And I'm curious whether or not either one of you, and the audience is curious as well, how you dealt with any resistance you might have had from Foreign Service officers who've been doing it however they've been doing it for 30 years, or in your case.
In my case, there's a lot of resistance. Not from the tactical practitioner to the operations manager, and even to the bosses. There's a lot of hesitancy on using new systems. One is because of security, obviously, but also is when you're in a foreign country, who's the service provider in those countries? It's not us, right? It's not U.S. providers. So who's going to get that data? So from point A to point B, there's a big gap. So who's going to get that data? Those are questions that they ask us practitioners. That's why we always go back to the NGA to help us out and get these questions to our bosses, to our managers, so that we can get digitally integrated.
Now you're seeing, across all of you, you're seeing the culture change where it worked. And Katie, you mentioned that the data is coming from the field and it's mobile, and you're pushing it into a system. So we've moved from enterprise to web to services, to everybody sharing this data. Are you hearing anything different from these digital natives than you're seeing elsewhere in the marketplace, Jack?
No, it's quite profound. I think what I would simply suggest is mission first. That's really where great development happens. A lot of people say, well, I'm a computer scientist, I'm first, I engineer these things in the back office. But Ben, what you've done is connected your own engineering people with the field and with the mission. And that's really where innovation happens. We often say great software is done by focusing on helping people do their work better. And every one of those words matters. You know, great software, focus,
I frequently
doing their work better, you know. And so what I'm getting is that you have your lab, but you're pushing your lab people out to work with people like Katie and Aljune to figure out the actual workflows that matter, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I frequently refer to our developers as the special forces of coders. So our developers are constantly solving problems. They're not just getting lost in code. They're going out there with us when we're doing these integrations or military exercises. They know the problem and the mission, not just the code itself.
So June sort of mentioned that an old school app that had classroom training associated with it and sort of did the job, but wasn't tunable to the need. And then he said, I ran into the app we used in this particular example, and I could self-train myself. And Katie sort of had a very similar story. And you say, well, even when it's not perfect, they call back in and the app evolves very quickly. And then when, I'm putting words in your mouth, when you were successful, the other battalions are saying, well, what's going on over there? You know, we want a bite of that.
Yes, definitely. So once the proof of our concept was what happened was because of the attacks in Burkina Faso. If the attacks was unfortunate, but we were able to use the system, and that's how they got attention to our commanders and to our other battalions as well. So now not just our teams in Africa are using it. We have other teams as well, always calling us or calling the NGA. And it's funny because Justin will call down and it says, June, they're asking the same questions you were asking 3 years ago. So I was like, all right, we got to find a way to streamline this in our place. But what's awesome is from those hesitations from Carmen asked, the hesitations that we initially had 3 years ago, there's a more open acceptance towards it because they see the value of digital integration. The commanders see how instant, how immediate the information comes in and how informed they become to flex any resources towards the mission.
That's been our experience too. So, you know, pushing the technology forward by using mobile apps, by using cloud computing. For us, we're trying to save time, we're trying to save money, and then we're trying to keep our accuracy as good as it was or better. And I think that in terms of the Morocco example, we were within 1% of the official government statistics. So, I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better validation than that. And so that's really the proof of concept right there.
So field data works.
Field data works.
And you had field data in real time.
Yeah, in real time, we're able to leverage our overseas partners to have like a continuous data pipeline as well. So it doesn't just stop here. We've done it for a number of other countries, and we're only expanding.
So I have a couple of questions here for Ben as well, and one is, what's next on the list of new capabilities that are going to be offered by NGA? And another is kind of the other end of that question, can you provide the names of resources to help quickly bring back some digital stragglers, help bring digital stragglers more into using these new and emerging technologies?
Sure, yeah, so on the what's next, so we're continuously building out these segments or modules of technology, with this app being one of them, but the App Store and solving that distribution problem of government-managed apps is another. But we're also looking at, through lessons learned with this technology, is how to get more robust vector, raster data offline on a mobile device with all of the zoom levels, regardless of if you're connected or not. So we're working on building out some of the open geospatial consortium libraries for what's called GeoPackage and maps that will, an application called MapCache that will utilize that type of format offline that will integrate with Mage too. So imagine if you have an offline map with all of the details that you need, you can airdrop that over to the person that's using that. So those are some of the things that's next, and also it's more on the question of scale, is this needs to become, you know, we started with the code being a commodity that was made as open source so that we lowered those barriers of entries we could share with foreign partners, to shipping a good. So that was the application itself, to now let's scale this up to a service.
Some of my thoughts, Ben, are first, the cloud and mobile patterns are the way of the future. Cloud allows you to do the big AI work that you need to do, for example, in the food forecasting or crop forecasting. Mobile, agile, to be able to be in the field. And this relationship that you're describing of being able to download with geo packages information and hit it right in the field is fantastic. The thing I would simply suggest is you've got to work on this idea of how do we productize these sorts of tools so that people that are in harm's way can count on that 100% of the time. But opening that up on top of the other thing that the three of you did not talk about is something called geospatial infrastructure. What is geospatial infrastructure? It's really, you could think of it as GIS at scale. It's all of the data that you talked about this morning being open, available through APIs, available as services, that we can build these lightweight apps, mobile-first apps, to take to the field and just kick it. You know, that's the real pattern. And I guess something I want to mention that all three of you are doing is you're disseminating technology without the big infrastructure for dissemination.
Well, technology data in mission space.
In mission space. But
and so a great conversation with Ben at breakfast this morning, and you saw it in the video where the FEMA guys were airdropping to each other.
Yeah.
And you know, Ben and I are ready to airdrop, and just like he would hand me a set of documents, you know, we can airdrop, but somebody in the bureaucracy says, well, there's a rule against airdropping. Yeah. Well, is there a rule against me giving me the document? Oh no, just against airdropping. And so the scaling is to say, what's the new set of rules when we take a word like airdrop and
I'm not really talking about scaling the technology, I'm talking about scaling out
the behaviors.
The behavior in the behavior space. Right. And I think really what you guys are doing is sharing, maybe not top down, maybe not in a schoolhouse, maybe not in a formal way. Here's how to do it. And this idea of informal sharing requires trust. So dissemination of these products happen at the speed of trust. Actually, collaboration happens at the speed of trust. And this idea that we can build a friendship network at what you're calling digital natives, I just say human beings, so that they can trust each other and go at speed is essential. I mean, do you guys trust each other?
So, Katie, did you?
It's a fundamental question. Do you trust each other?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So how did that trust come about? I mean, how did you come to trust this app? How did you come to trust Ben in doing this? It's a really provocative question, actually.
For me, be the end user of the app, I had to test out the app first.
Yes.
Right? Making a phone call to the developers would have
real
been,
experience.
Yeah, I had to get a little bit more experience, and I had to ask. For myself, I had to see what my immediate managers would ask. So while using the app, I'm already asking myself about the security of it, about this app, about the applicability. Is it really fast as they say it is? How immediate? What other capabilities are in there in the app that may be used, like the pinging of our location? That was something that we found out later, not immediately. So we had to trust the app to be able to trust the research and development crew of Ben, and then it just came from that. We trusted the app. For my experience, we trusted the app first, and then we trusted the developers who were working on the app.
Then you were a team.
Became a team.
And became a team.
Well, great. Thank you so much for the panel. Thank you to the audience for participating with your questions. And let's give them a good round of applause.